Hi everyone, Richard here at Calvin Wazoo, and I am hopping on another thread. It's a vinyl tag that is being prompted by Chris at Tunes from the Man Cave, and he's got a long list of questions here. I mean, it's the year 2022, so he's got 22 questions. So this is going to be kind of a long video. He promises that next year there will only be 10 questions for his jazz vinyl tag. But I went through the questions, and my jazz collection is, in comparison to the rest of my record collection, is not that big. And my records may be a little, I don't want to say pedestrian, but it's not a real deep collection. So I'm not probably going to show very many that are, really deep releases. And the other thing too is on a couple of the questions I kind of had to fudge a little bit. So we'll get to those. But hey, let's get started because, like I say, there are a lot of questions. And the first one is my favorite jazz find of 2021. And this has to be it. This is Eric Dolphy at the 5 spot and on the New Jazz label. And this is volume 1, the New Jazz Prestige label. It is, I found it this in 2021. Used record, decent price, and Eric Dolphy is probably my most favorite, jazz artist. I mean, I really love his material, and but I also, really like Coltrane. The types of jazz that I like are two types: piano-centric jazz and saxophone centric jazz. So, and then Eric Dolphy, it's bass clarinet. He plays flute on some of his releases, plays saxophone as well. But I just really find him amazing and intriguing. All right, moving on. The next one is my favorite reissue released in 2021. Now, some of you might think, well, this isn't jazz. This is rock. Well, I'm gonna beg to differ. All right, I'm going with this here, Morphine, and the reissue of Cure for Pain, because man, when you listen to this, I picture myself in a smoky beatnik bar, listening to avant-garde jazz, and Morphine. It's a saxophone, a bass, and drums, and then, there's the singing. But to me, it's more jazz than it is rock. So yeah, that's my one for my favorite reissue of 2021. Okay, then my favorite new jazz release of 2021. This was, I believe, a Record Store Day release, and so I picked it up. And wow, this just really blew me away. This is Thelonious Monk, and it's the Palo Alto concert, the Custodians mix. In fact, I did a video about this when I picked it up, because the only reason there's a tape is because the custodian at the school where the concert was held recorded it. And it's a pretty good recording, from considering the circumstances. So yes, and it's on. Even though this is a new release, it's got a very cool Impulse label. But yeah, this is definitely my favorite new release of at least the ones, that I have from 2021. All right, now a saxophone lead jazz session. And as I mentioned before, saxophone is one of my favorite instruments in the jazz catalog or whatever. And I'm going to kind of go with something from the 70s, probably something that not a lot of people necessarily think about, and that is this Tom Scott LA Express. If this is the Tomcat album, which is on this Epic Ode label. I mean, I picked this up when I was in college, and I've loved it ever since. I do. I just like it. All right, then a trumpet lead jazz session. This was a gift of VCLT from somebody who is actually not really in the vinyl community, but anyway, they sent me some records, and this was one of them. Wynton Marsalis Black Codes. And I was really pleased with this because I kind of had this attitude toward Wynton Marsalis that he was a little bit of the Marsalis family. He was just a little bit too commercial. I mean, that's kind of the way I felt about it. But then listening to this is a remarkable album. And so I am really glad that I got this so that I could have my mind opened up a little bit and broadened regarding Wynton Marsalis and his catalog. Now, a guitar lead or a guitar-led jazz session. And this one is probably one that, not a lot of people are familiar with. Maybe more people are than I am aware. But it's Tommy Guerrero, and it's the Road to Nowhere. And Nowhere, don't like that. I bought this. It's a blind buy, but I'm really quite happy with it. Very nice stuff. And I don't always listen, like I say, I don't always listen to a lot of guitar-centered jazz. I mean, I have some in the collection, but my preference is toward piano and saxophone. The next one then is a piano-led jazz session. And this pianist I just really, really like his catalog. It's a Japanese pianist, Ryo Fukui. And this is the record of A Letter from Slow Boat. And Slow Boat is actually the name of the jazz club in Japan that he operated. And then I ordered this one from Japan. I mean, you can find his material here in the U.S., but it doesn't crop up very often. A remarkable story. He taught himself how to play piano when he was like, I can't remember. I did another video about him and talked about his life a lot more. And I'm trying to remember. I think he learned how to play piano when he was like 21, and he taught himself how to play piano. And then by the time he was 24, he was releasing albums, and it's brilliant. I mean, he is like the best combination of Thelonious Monk and Oscar Peterson. I mean, if you like their piano playing, you're going to love Ryo Fukui. And it's a very limited catalog, and I would just say, hey, buy everything. Now, this one I kind of fudged a little bit, all right? This is organ-led jazz, okay? And, there's in fact, a bar here in Chicago where there is this guy who plays, I think it's a Hammond organ, and he's playing all these, jazz standards all the time. Old blind guy, and he's just, it's really great to be, sitting at the bar, and because the organ is right there behind the bar. But I don't have anything like that really on record. But I thought of, okay, I'm going to go with this band. This is another Japanese band, and the primary instruments are keyboards, okay, electric keyboards, and it's this band called Mouse on the Keys. And they're very new jazz, very, very much centered on the keyboards, and then there's bass and drum, and sometimes I'll add some other instruments or whatever. So you've got these two keyboard players, And it's also the time signatures are like shifting and changing, and so the drummer is just absolutely fantastic. This is a new record too. It was released this year. Their records are not easy to find and tend to be expensive because you got to get them from Japan most of the time. But on occasion, again, if you see one of their records show up, and you're in the U.S., buy it. It's good stuff. I think you'll like it. All right, moving on to a trombone or tuba-led jazz session. And so here's another one where I kind of had to fudge things a little bit. For a while, I was thinking about maybe I could go with this, Frank Zappa's Imaginary Diseases, because we've got Bruce Fowler on here on a couple songs where he is playing the song, he's playing these trombone solos. And I mean, the material is jazz, and jazz, it smells funny. But anyway, and then there's also a song where he is playing, it's either a baritone or a tuba. This particular CD copy I lost the liner notes with all that information. So there's that in there. But you know what, Chris, you didn't have, when we were talking, when you're talking about the different led jazz albums, bass led. I mean, because there are a lot of orchestras or groups or bands that got together that are being led by a bass player. So I kind of figured, okay, let's, I thought about showing something by Charlie Mingus, but, I'll stick with this because there is some trombone and tuba playing going on with that particular release. All right, now the next one is my favorite jazz funk record, and seriously, it has to be this, Headhunters. When this came out, I was in high school, and this was also my introduction to jazz fusion. It led me, to things like Weather Report, Chick Corea, the Crusaders, and a lot of other groups and musicians who were releasing material at that time. I mean, every high school jazz band at the time was playing, Watermelon Man, or they were playing, what are the other songs? Not so much Sly or Vein Melter, but Watermelon Man definitely was one that get played a lot, and Chameleon. Chameleon definitely is the one that a lot of high school jazz bands performed. And another one from that era for the jazz fusion record was this one, Stanley Clarke, School Days. I mean, damn, he could play that bass. I mean, just amazing. I don't know if there's anything about this Nemperor Records label that this is on. I don't know if there's really anything special on it, because I thought it was a CBS release when it first came out. I mean, I had the record at the time that it came out, but I'm pretty sure it was a CBS label. So I don't know what this label is that when I brought it back into my collection. But yeah, Stanley Clarke, the School Days, it's just almost a perfect album. Really, really like that. All right, so next question is an underappreciated album by an artist that you love. Well, an artist that I love is, in the jazz sphere, is Miles Davis. I mean, how can you not love somebody who has fundamentally changed the direction of music 3 times in their career? All right? I mean, the Beatles only did it like maybe once, maybe twice. Bob Dylan did it like once, maybe twice. Miles Davis did it at least 3 times. You could possibly even say 4 times, where he just shifted the direction music went, both in jazz and in popular music. So the record, though, that I don't hear a lot of people talk about, that may be underappreciated is this. All right, this is the soundtrack to the French film Ascenseur pour l'échafaud, Lift to the Scaffold, which is also a brilliant film noir film noir. It's a film. It's an epic film noir. Okay, there we go. This is on the Fantana label. It's a reissue. But the other thing that's like makes a connection with me is it was released the year I was born. And the other thing is the way it was composed. Okay, so you've got Miles Davis, then Barney Willen on tenor sax, René Outrajor on piano, Pierre Michelot on bass, and Kenny Clark on drums. And basically what they did is they improvised everything while watching the film. That's how they created the soundtrack. An amazing, amazing recording. All right, so a live jazz album. This is probably, one of the quintessential live jazz albums, at least in my opinion, and that's Keith Jarrett's The Cone Concert. What a remarkable recording this is. Took me a while. It's not that difficult to find, but it did take me a while to find a copy in the stores, without resorting to ordering from somebody online, and in really good condition, because it is normally a fairly accessible, widely available record, and not that expensive. So, but a brilliant, brilliant live recording. All right, a super group. So the one that I did pull for a super group was this one, Don Sebesky Giant Box. And I mean, talk about a super group. I mean, the people that are on here playing with him: Freddie Hubbard, Grover Washington, George Benson, Milt Jackson, Jackie Kane, Paul Desmond, Ron Carter, Bob James, Billy Cobham. I mean, come on, a bunch of all-stars on this recording, right? Not that they all play at the same time, on the songs, but, they're all involved in it. And hence the name, Giant Box. I mean, it is a box set, but there's really just two records there's just two records. But, they're all giants. But then as I was pulling records out, I got to show this one too. Again, talk about a super group. This was a recent, I think within the last year. When was this released? This was released in 2020 on the Tone Poet series. All right, Money Jungle. You got Duke Ellington, Charles Mingus, and Max Roach. I mean, damn. Beautiful cover. And Duke Ellington's piano playing is just, it is so out there. It is just so beautiful and amazing. I do love piano jazz, and especially really good piano jazz like that. All right, next one. So this is a record by your favorite artist as a sideman. So the record I chose is this one here. Sorry about the glare because I still have the shrink around it. Impressions by John Coltrane. And on track A1, which is called India, fantastic song, is my favorite artist, Eric Dolphy, playing bass clarinet. Pretty much his signature instrument. So yeah, Eric Dolphy is the sideman playing with John Coltrane, on this. Really brilliant album. It's on the MCA label. So nothing really, MCA and Impulse, nothing real special about it. So that's the record with my favorite artist as a sideman. All right, next one is an album more people should know about. And this may surprise some of you because it's an anime soundtrack. All right, and it is Cowboy Bebop from the anime series Cowboy Bebop. And this is really incredible because much of the material, and it's by this Japanese band called the Seatbelts, and much of the material is very, very hard bop. It's just classic hard bop. And there is, there's like some blues in there and some other musical styles that are in this. But man, talk about great classic hard bop, being produced by a very large band. I think there's like maybe 10 or so different musicians in the band. So yeah, that's a little bit different perhaps for some people who haven't thought about it. Check it out on YouTube and listen to the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack by the Seatbelts. Pretty amazing stuff. All right, an album by an artist that should have been bigger. Well, this is just my perception. I kind of feel like this band should have been bigger, and maybe they are bigger than I think they are, but I just never hear anybody talk about them. And the band is Placebo. And what I'm going to show here is Placebo Live 1971. On the We Release Jazz label. This is a half-speed mastering of it. I picked this up again kind of on a lark because I was looking for music by the post-punk rock band Placebo. But then I saw this in the jazz section, and I knew it wasn't the same band, but I thought it was interesting, that they were using the same name. And so you've got Mark Moulin on keyboards, Nick Klachovsky on bass, Freddie Rotier on drums, Johnny Dover, bass clarinet, Alex Scourier, soprano saxophone, and Richard Rousselet on flugelhorn. This is really great stuff. And yeah, this is something I don't, not that I'm like deeply involved in the jazz vinyl community, but it just seems like not a lot of people talk about them. And I just think that, that for as good as I think their music, they should have been a lot bigger than they are. All right, a vocal jazz album. I was so happy when this was released this past Christmas by Analog Productions, and that's a swinging Christmas with Ella Fitzgerald. I mean, I had this on CD for years, and then, as I said, Analog Productions ended up doing a reissue with Verve Records. Holy smokes, this is great. This is really great. It's Ella Fitzgerald, and it's Christmas music. Okay, now here's an album that not many talk about, but I really love it. And so, I know about Art Blakey. I've got Art Blakey in the Jazz Messengers. But then I saw this one time in the store. This is Gypsy Folk Tales. And, we've got Art Blakey, Dennis Irwin on bass, Dave Schnitter on tenor sax, Bobby Watson on alto sax, Walter Davis on piano, and Valerie Ponomarev on trumpet. And, I kind of looked it up online to see, how it was rated. And, it was kind of rated like in the middle, like kind of mediocre. But it was a pretty decent price. So I picked it up and I took it home and I was like, wow, this is really, really, really good. To me, it's a 5-star record. And to a lot of people, it's not. But that is another album, again, that I really like, but a lot of people just don't talk about. All right, now we're talking about, what I hope to see in the future. So a record that I hope to find in 2022. Well, One is I really would like to find, and I have one, well, actually, I have two because I have a Charlie Brown Christmas as well. But, I have this by Vince Guaraldi, the Vince Guaraldi Trio. So this is, Cast Your Fate to the Wind. Kind of got some damage on it or whatever, but the album is in pretty decent shape. But anyway, I would really like to find some more records by Vince Guaraldi Trio. I've been looking for them all the time, and I don't see them. Occasionally, I see them listed for sale, in Discogs. But, it's a little too much money. I really would prefer to find it, in a store someplace. So that's something I continue to hope to find. I'm also on the lookout for a Charles Mingus record called Cumbia and Jazz Fusion. That just sounds really interesting to me because I really like cumbia music. So I would, his release Tijuana Moods, Mingus's Tijuana Moods. I love the way he has created the sound and employs the Latin rhythms, and so I would be really interested in hearing what he's doing with this cumbia and jazz fusion. So those are some records I hope to find. I've been looking for them for a long time, just haven't seen them. And then a new release or reissue that I'd be looking forward to in 2022. I don't know if this is going to be reissued, but the record is by the jazz fusion, kind of maybe jazz rock band Nucleus, and the reissue I would love to see is of their album Alley Cat. Right now, as far as I know, there are no reissues, just OGs are the only ones available, and they're like $300, cheap ones are going for $200, and, it's a band from Britain, so, if I buy one from overseas and postage from Great Britain is outrageous to begin with, but the price is just too high. I am just hoping that the Nucleus catalog will be reissued. Another band that's kind of in the jazz fusion realm that I would love to see some reissues so that they would be more affordable is Cassiopeia. That's another one I would love to see. And then the last one, all right, my house is on fire, and I can only save one record. What is it going to be? Well, I decided to go with this one. Eric Dolphy, Iron Man. And this was the first Eric Dolphy record I ever bought. And the reason, I just like going through the jazz records, and I see this one, and I'm sitting there thinking, Frank Zappa talks about Eric Dolphy. Frank Zappa cites Eric Dolphy in that list on the album Freak Out. I should check out Eric Dolphy. And I did, and, this wasn't a cheap record either. This is, I can't remember if it's, it's the Douglas label. There's something special about this one, and I can't remember what it is. There's the label. So it was a bit pricey to me at that time. It was like $45. And it's not even in that perfect condition because there is a song, it's the last song on side 2. It doesn't cause a kickback, but there's a short scratch that creates a very loud pop toward the end of the song for about 2 or 3 rotations. And but still, beyond that, it's like a near mint album. But yeah, it's a very sentimental album to me, and that's the one I would take because Eric Dolphy, to me, what an amazing musical artist, just amazing. So there you go. There's my jazz vinyl tag. Hope you enjoyed that. I am on Instagram under the handle NewsDude76, so that's NEWZDUDE76. And as always, pray for the people inside your head, for they won't be there when you're dead.